You've heard it 1,000 times. Go. No contact to heal. But what happens when the narcissist goes? No contact with you. When they block you, disappear without warning, like you never even existed. You're left confused, hurt, and worst of all, questioning yourself. Am I the narcissist?
In today's video, we're going to expose this calculated move for what it really is. Because silence isn't always the end, it can be the final trap. A twisted ploy to make you reach out, break no contact, and unknowingly send the message. We'll dive into the real reasons a narcissist might cut you off first. From the reverse Hoover tactic to the fear of being exposed, or simply because they've already lined up new supply. Not everyone who walks away is healed, and not everyone who stays silent is strong. Sometimes going no contact is just a more sophisticated form of. If you've ever found yourself in this situation abandoned and confused with no explanation, you need to watch this video to the end. And if any part of this message resonates with your story, hit that subscribe button, because we're diving even deeper into the twisted dynamics of narcissistic abuse. Not just so you can escape it, but so you can rise. Not everyone who disappears from your life is letting go. Sometimes that silence is a calculated move not to end things, but to control you. If you've ever been suddenly blocked, ghosted, or cut off without warning, you know the pain isn't just in the absence. It's in the questions that echo in your mind long after they're gone. Why? When someone who once manipulated you suddenly vanishes, it's rarely about closure. It's often a high-level psychological tactic, one that uses silence as a weapon to destabilize your thoughts, to make you question your worth, and eventually, and here's the cruel twist, if you call them, text them, or break the silence they created, they win. They don't need to apologize. They don't need to explain. They don't have to take accountability. Because in their mind, the moment you reach out, you're saying, I forgive you. I'm over it. This kind of manipulation doesn't shout. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It works in the quiet. It's called emotional domination through absence, and it's one of the most damaging forms of abuse, not because it's loud, but because it makes you doubt yourself. And if you do return, even with a simple, "Are you okay?" they can use that to erase everything. See? They came back. It must not have been that bad. They were exaggerating. Suddenly, your pain is invalid. Your story gets rewritten, and they're no longer the villain, they're the misunderstood. So if you're going through this right now, if someone left you without a word, stop blaming yourself. That kind of silence isn't always a sign of emotional maturity. Sometimes it's a sign of someone who's trying to reclaim power through quiet control. But here's the thing. Not every narcissist who disappears is secretly hoping you'll come crawling back. Some vanish because they've already found a new source of supply, someone fresh, someone easier to manipulate. And do you know what hurts the most? It's when the person they once told you was just a friend or nothing to worry about becomes your replacement. Not because they've fallen in love, not because they've matured or changed, but because they need a new stage, a new audience, since you've stopped playing your role in their. You're no longer easy to gaslight. You no longer fall for their recycled lies. You've seen the truth behind their charm. And for a narcissist, that's more threatening, so they disappear. Not to heal, but to protect the illusion. The longer they stay, the higher the risk of being exposed, of losing control. And nothing terrifies them more than being looked at by someone who's woken up. Someone who no longer. To them, you're no longer supply. You're a liability. You know too much. You've seen too much. And now you. So they block you, cut you off, ghost you. Not because they've let you go, but because they. And here's what you must never forget. Their disappearance isn't a rejection of your worth. It's an escape from their own reality. They can't stand to be seen for who they truly are. They can't face the truth. And they certainly can't handle you, not now, not as the version of yourself that no longer needs. So what should you do when the narcissist is the one who goes? No contact first. Should you text them? Call them? Try to get closure or demand an explanation? The answer is simple. No. Because in their game of control, any effort you make to reconnect, here's a hard truth to accept. They're not seeking healing. They're seeking power. And their silence, though it may appear like retreat, is one of the cruelest psychological tactics. It traps you in a one-sided conversation, keeps you questioning what went wrong, and makes you But you don't have to play that game anymore. You don't have to chase clarity from someone who only ever fed you confusion. What you need to do is this: stay silent. Not out of spite, but out of awareness. I don't need to play the victim anymore, and I don't need to be their savior either. I choose peace over closure. I don't need answers from... That's not weakness. That's real strength, the kind that comes from realizing. Not every explanation is necessary. Not everyone is capable of offering an apology. And not everyone who disappears. When you stop fully, firmly, without reaching back, you're not just ending a toxic relationship. You're breaking the cycle. You're refusing to be a source of supply. And you're declaring, I am no longer a pawn in someone else's manipulation. You don't need to wait for an apology. You don't need a formal goodbye. Because sometimes silence is the clearest thing a person can say. I know it's hard. It's hard to accept a relationship ending without closure. It's hard to let go when your heart still beats a little faster at the thought of them. And it's even harder when they vanish suddenly without explanation, leaving only silence and 1,000 unanswered questions. You might spend hours staring at your phone, hoping for a message, a call, a signal that what you had meant something. You might wonder if they miss you, if they regret it, if they're watching you quietly while you suffer out loud. All of that is human, but you need to understand this. No response is still a response. And often it's the most honest one you'll ever. When someone can walk out of your life without a word, they're telling you everything you need to know. Not that you're unworthy, but that in their world where everything revolves around them, what hurts the most isn't just that they left. It's that you're still here waiting for a realization, waiting for them to come back and say, I'm sorry. I was wrong, I never But hear me clearly. You don't need an apology from someone who didn't have the courage to love you right. You don't need closure from someone who only knew how to avoid conflict. All you need is the truth. And here it is. They're gone. It's a painful truth, but it's also a freeing one. Because now you don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to keep your phone by your side at night. You don't have to replay the moments wondering what went wrong, what you could have done differently, or if being someone else would have made them stay. You gave what you had with an open heart. You loved with kindness, patience, and faith. If they couldn't see the value in that, the fault isn't yours. And if they couldn't stay, you don't need to chase. I know there will be nights when you cry alone. Days when you smile for the world while breaking inside. Moments when you're angry at yourself for loving the wrong person. But let me say this to you from someone who stood where you are. You are not weak because you're hurting. You are strong because you dared to love. You are strong because you've walked through heartbreak and didn't let it turn you cold. And you're stronger than ever because you're still here healing even without... Don't wait for someone else to close the chapter so you can start again. Don't wait for them to validate your pain before you let it go. Your life doesn't require permission from the one who broke your heart. If you're reading this today, I hope you lift your head high. Not because you've forgotten them, but because you've remembered yourself. Not because you don't feel anymore, but because you've chosen to set boundaries. Not because you've closed your heart, but because you're And when you stop waiting, when you stop reaching out, when you step out of the emotional trap they laid. You do the one thing they never expected. You take your power. That's the moment the script inside the narcissist's mind begins to crumble. Because what they cannot control is a you who no longer. A narcissist survives on one thing: your reaction. They live to see you cry, to hear you plead, to watch you break and blame yourself. Every time you explode, beg, or fall apart in confusion to them, it's proof that you still belong to them. But when you do nothing, when you go completely silent, you're no longer playing your part in their drama. You're not the victim. You're not seeking resolution. You're not trying to prove your worth. And to a narcissist, that makes you. Your silence forces them to face the void they cannot fill. No one left to manipulate. No one to guilt. No one to test. They believed you'd come back just like before. They thought you couldn't live without them. But this time is different. You're not coming back. You're not crying. You're not giving them any opening to return. And that's when they unravel. Silence used to be their weapon, but now you're using it on them. They might start putting on a show, posting happy photos, flaunting a new relationship, writing captions about growth and peace. But don't be fooled, it's all insecurity in disguise, because they can't stand the thought of you being okay without them, of you being happy, stable, whole, even after they walked away. That truth stings in a way they were never prepared for. And so they begin to test the waters. A random message, a like on an old post, a mysterious emoji reaction. Don't mistake it. It's not regret. It's a test. To see if you're still soft. To see if the door you shut is still locked. If you respond even slightly, they'll keep going. Not because they miss you, but because they miss the power they had over you. Because they can't bear the reality that you chose. So remember this. When you don't respond, you're not being cold. You're healing. You're rewriting the ending without needing apologies, explanations, or validation. And in that silence, you're sending the clearest message of all: I am no longer your puppet. But the hardest part isn't leaving. It's not going back. Because there will be moments when their silence makes you doubt yourself. You'll start to wonder, were they really that bad? Maybe I overreacted. What if they've actually... They don't have to say a single word to make you question everything. All it takes is enough time, a vague signal, and suddenly your mind begins reconstructing a sweeter version of them. That's when nostalgia starts rewriting reality. That's when your memory replays the good moments and convenient. But hear this clearly. Not everyone who comes back deserves to be welcomed, and not everyone who stays silent has changed. If they truly felt remorse, you wouldn't have to guess. If they genuinely wanted to make things right, they wouldn't approach you with passive, ambiguous testing the waters behavior. People who have truly changed don't return to check if you're still easy to manipulate. They don't poke at the scars you've barely healed. So if you want to protect the freedom you fought for, you must learn to recognize the subtle trap. It won't come in the form of a heartfelt confession. It'll come as a simple message like, hey, it's been a while. Not a bouquet of flowers, but an emoji. Not a real apology, but a knock on the door with no words. Remember this. You don't owe a conversation to someone who once shattered your peace. You don't have to reopen the door just because the person knocking. Etch this into your heart. They entered my life with sweetness, but left me in pieces. If I don't want the same ending, I can't. Healing isn't a destination. It's a choice you make again and again. And every time you choose not to reply, not to romanticize the past, not to let your guard down. You don't have to be cold to be strong. You just have to be honest about what you went through. You don't have to pretend you've forgotten. You only need to remember enough not to repeat it. And you don't need anyone to validate your journey. Because the peace you feel today is the only proof. Keep walking forward. Don't look back. Because ahead of you there is no manipulation, only freedom, peace, and the most powerful version of yourself waiting to rise. When you walk away from a relationship with a narcissist, you don't just carry emotional wounds, you carry doubt. Doubt in your judgment, doubt in your instincts, doubt in your worth. You trusted them, and they made you feel crazy. You believed it was your fault, when in reality, you were being manipulated. You thought love meant self-sacrifice, when your sacrifice was never seen, let alone valued. So, when it's over, you don't just lose them, you lose confidence in your ability to see clearly. You question what love really looks like. You don't know and I want to tell you this. Start small. Start gently. You don't have to be okay overnight. You don't need to rush into another relationship just to feel whole again. Your fear of being hurt. Start by trusting the little things. Trust that you deserve to be heard without being mocked. Trust that you can say no without feeling guilty. Trust that your emotions are valid, then grow into the bigger truths. Trust that you can create happiness for yourself without needing someone else to hand it to you. Trust that you can rebuild your life even if the foundation has been shattered. And trust that one day you'll meet someone not to fix you, but to walk beside you, healthy. But before you place that trust in anyone else, you must return it to yourself. You must learn to listen to the voice within the one you silenced for the sake of keeping someone else comfortable. You must learn to honor your boundaries, the ones you once erased in the hope of being accepted. You must learn to love yourself, not as a trend. You'll have days when you second-guess everything, moments where you're unsure if you're doing the right thing. But don't let the lies from your past, the ones repeated until you believe them, define your truth. You're not weak because you loved the wrong person. You're strong because you walked away from where you once felt not enough. You're brave not because you're fearless, but because you move forward. And someday you'll look in the mirror and no longer see the version of you who was filled with doubt. You'll see someone who is grateful for the past because it gave you the strength to reclaim your future. Healing doesn't happen fast, but if you stay the course, you won't just regain trust. You'll reclaim yourself, the version of you that no one can. Not everyone will understand the scars you carry. Not everyone knows how many times you stayed silent just to protect a fragile peace. But you know. Leaving a relationship with a narcissist isn't just about walking away. It's about coming home to yourself. You're not only healing the wounds they left behind, you're also unlearning the false beliefs they planted in you, that you're too sensitive, that you're not enough, that love must come. But now you're learning step by step how to trust love and choose yourself in a healthy way. And there is no greater victory than that. If you're on that path now, keep going. Even if it's slow, even if you're trembling, even if part of you wants to turn back, just don't stop. Because every step you take is a step away from manipulation, and a step they no longer get to define you. They no longer get to test your vulnerability. They no longer get to be the center of your world. Because now, if this video resonated with you, hit subscribe so you don't miss more deeply healing content like this. And share this with someone who might be silently trying to escape a toxic relationship. Because sometimes the right message you are not crazy. You are not weak. You are someone who's been deeply hurt, and now you are learning to rise with your whole heart. And that is true strength.